I had a little bit of a Bernie Sanders story for everyone. Bernie Sanders back to his old tricks. He is roasting the billionaires, dragging the billionaires, and this time he's set his eyes on Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, my new least favorite billionaire. Honestly, the dude's been a cringe machine. He's tried to dunk on Trump, but he's so out of touch when he does it. He's like, I'm a real billionaire. I actually have 6 zeros following the ones and twos in my bank account, blah, blah, blah. All this stupid, cringy shit. And on top of that, he has joined Peter Thiel and I believe Reid Hoffman are the two guys at the biggest billionaire cheerleaders for removing Lina Khan as FTC chair. Now, you guys might need a little bit of backstory. Peter Thiel, everybody knows about. Reid Hoffman, he also got rich in the first round of fundraising for Facebook. So they're all kind of swimming in that same swamp. Mark Cuban, he also likes the monopolistic nature of the tech world. He wants to preserve it. Bernie Sanders wants to destroy it, and so does Lina Khan. Let's read in a little bit from this Common Dreams article, shall we, Gavin? I'll zoom in so people who like to read along, I don't know why you would when you have such a marvelous narrator in me and Gavin, but we'll zoom in nonetheless. Mark Cuban is wrong. Bernie Sanders defends Lina Khan as the best FC chair in modern history. By taking on corporate greed and illegal monopolies, the FTC chair is doing an exceptional job preventing large corporations from ripping off consumers and exploiting workers, said the U.S. Senator from Vermont, after billionaire entrepreneur and investor Mark Cuban this week said publicly that he would get rid of the FTC commission chair if he had the chance. Now, I just wanted to also tie this into a remarkable article that came out in Bloomberg. Rare that you see good work done in Bloomberg, but I really liked this article. I read the whole thing this morning over my first cup of coffee. Lina Khan is just getting started. She hopes this is why guys like Mark Cuban are pissing their pants. Biden's FTC chair has toughened merger oversight, taken on non-competes, and made the donor class crazy. She hints that there's a lot more to come if she's given the chance. And I want to just read off a few of the things that she has been able to accomplish right here. Her FTC overhauled its criteria for judging mergers and acquisitions and challenged a bunch of the big ones. NVIDIA, Sanofi, HCA Healthcare, Illumina, Lockheed and Martin abandoned planned mergers after the FTC sued, and Kroger Co. might be next. If you guys remember, Kroger tried to merge and do a big grocer acquisition that was going to drive up the price of groceries for everyone. It was part of the big price gouging effort that grocers and food service and food providers, kind of did in the wake of COVID. You guys remember when eggs got really expensive and they were like, oh, it's because of a bird flu. It was not because of a bird flu. It was manufactured price gouging. Lina Khan says, nuh-uh. The FTC is also suing Amazon.com Incorporated and Facebook parent Meta Platforms, Inc. for alleged anti-competitive practices. Again, that's why guys like Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel specifically, but also guys like Mark Cuban, who are, again, invested across the board. For people who don't know, billionaires are invested in everything. If you have $1 billion, you have equity in all kinds of shit. I guarantee you, Mark Cuban has all kinds of equity in Amazon and all these other, startups spread out across Silicon Valley. His money's managed by hedge funds, by, VCs, by all that jazz. So anyway, what are your thoughts on all of that, Gavin? And do you think that Lina Khan will be able to survive the barrage of attacks that calls for her to be removed? Do you think Kamala Harris will show a backbone? And as she's pretty much been committed across the board to align herself with the Biden administration, do you think she'll pivot when it comes to one of the only few good things he did?
I mean, I think it's anyone's guess. I really don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she caves to the pressure from these billionaires like Mark Cuban. This definitely is turning into a little bit of a war between factions of the Democratic Party. AOC, much like Bernie Sanders, has come out here in defense of Lina Khan. She says, let me make this clear. Since billionaires have been trying to play footsie with the ticket, anyone goes near Lina Khan and there will be an out brawl. And that is a promise. She proves this admin fights for working people. It would be terrible leadership to remove her. I 100% agree with this last part. I think AOC is 100% right. She does prove that this administration fights for working people. She's probably the best appointment under Joe Biden, and it would be terrible leadership to remove her. Here's what I disagree with, unfortunately, from AOC, that there will be an out-and-out brawl. I don't think we've seen much brawler energy from AOC. Unfortunately, we had high hopes for her. We have yet to see her really, truly deliver in that regard. As a aggressive left flank. I think she is great when it comes to making tweets like this. She's good at rhetoric a lot of times, but when it comes to actually fighting the establishment, nah. I think AOC rolls over, which sucks. I'm glad to see she's on the right side of history, but I do worry that there won't be as aggressive a fight as there should be to protect Lina Khan as people like Mark Cuban kind of circle in for the kill. Let's take a look here. I don't know if you're aware of this, Zach, but as a surrogate for Kamala Harris, Mark Cuban is now also basically straight up campaigning for a position in the administration himself, head of the Security and Energy Commission.
Security Exchange Commission.
Sorry, Security Exchange Commission.
The Wall Street regulators. This would be an absolute disaster to
Yeah.
make a billionaire in charge of that.
Yeah, very important stuff. And this is, I feel like, one of those things that a lot of normal people that don't make a lot of money, they don't really care about as much. But for the elites, for the elite class of people that obviously includes Mark Cuban, this stuff is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wall Street moves capital for people who, don't have to ever work again. And those are the people that have the most control in our government. So even though to you, you're like, who cares? I'm with good reason, because I don't make any money off the stock market. Gavin, as far as I know, doesn't make any money off the stock market. If he does, he's hiding it from me. You know what I mean? But anyway, no, I'm interested to hear, because I haven't seen this clip specifically from Mark Cuban.
Could I ask you, Mark, whether you would entertain being a Treasury Secretary, Commerce Secretary in a Harris
Head of the
administration?
SEC. Head of the SEC. That's the job I would take. Maybe HHS.
Yeah. So
Health and Human Services, get the out of here. We cannot let that guy anywhere near the Security Exchange Commission. And here's the other thing I'll add, Gavin. One thing that's really makes the SEC toothless, right, is because there is a windfall of capital waiting for you as soon as you go and take a job at a hedge fund or at a brokerage firm, right? You ever watch The Wolf of Wall Street, guys? The people that take down Jordan Belfort, that was the SEC, right? But the problem is those people are usually toothless and they won't go after the real big dogs. The reason they went after a guy like Jordan Belfort because he was an eyesore. He was like very, flamboyant, ostentatious, and that's how he got, Steve Madden's shoes and all those guys taken down with him. But that's neither here nor there. You can't put one of those goons that's a shark in charge of the SEC and expect them to do anything but give handouts to their buddies.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's an interesting conversation about Mark Cuban. Before we move on to the drama segments, guys, I wanted to, get your opinion on this, Zach, because I think Mark Cuban is an interesting character. I don't think you gave him quite enough credit a second ago when you said he's been going out here, making cringy arguments against Donald Trump. I know the clips you're talking about, specifically the one on Stephen Colbert, right, where he was just like, I wanted to unalive myself watching that cringe.
You took the words out of my mouth.
It was terrible. But I also have seen Mark Cuban on a number of mainstream platforms, podcasts, cable news, whatever. And I actually do think he's a pretty decent surrogate for Kamala, not because of what he stands for as far as, his economics and his elitist politics, but just as far as being a spokesperson. I think he actually is an asset to the Kamala ticket. I think he's pretty good in podcasts, like he went on Theo Vaughn or whatever. In situations like that, he's a lot better than your average billionaire when it comes to pretending to be a normal person. Like compare him to Mike Bloomberg or freaking Howard Schultz or like one of those kind of billionaire types that was like, I'm going to be president. I'm going to buy the presidency. And then the entire American public just reviled at the sight of them. They're like, get this guy away from me right now. I don't think Mark Cuban has that quality. I mean, it's why he was so popular on TV, Shark Tank. It does kind of make him the Democrat version of Donald Trump.
He brought a chip to Dallas. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with a lot. He is the billionaire celebrity that Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they all kind of dream of being, right? He has a way of being relatable to the layman. He kind of reminds you of your friend's dad when you're growing up, right? He's like into ball. He wants to talk about basketball. He's going to call you sport. He's going to take the kid to the volleyball tournament. He'd be really competitive on the sidelines, but in a supportive dad way and not in a PBD podcast way. You know what I'm talking about?
So true.
So I think in a lot of those ways, he made himself relatable. He also bought the Dallas Mavericks and turned them into a huge franchise in Dallas, right as Dallas was exploding. I think that helped him a lot, guys. People love a good sports franchise owner that's, on the ground celebrating with the players. It does a lot to humanize them. It does a lot to ground them. And it does a lot to take our eye off off the ball. When it comes down to it, they're going to do stupid shit like Lina Khan. Don't ever let yourself think there's a good billionaire, right? And I think that's what Mark Cuban represents to all of us.
J.B. Pritzker? What?
Right? The big boy from Illinois, even. I guarantee you he
Abigail
would sell us all
Disney?
down the river to have an extra bite of cheesecake. He would. But Mark Cuban, he is a decent surrogate in the narrow capacity that we have to beat Donald Trump, that the Democrats have decided that they don't care about the left and they only are going to cater to suburban Republicans and then the most right-wing leaning Democrats. And they're going to assume correctly that a bunch of dopes like us are going to follow them down that path because we're so horrified at the fascist takeover that Donald Trump could represent, the fact that he could install 5 Supreme Court justices by the time his reign of terror would end. Okay, that Gavin and I's entire life in politics would be seen through a very narrow straw of, oh yeah, we have to deal with the Supreme Court. So while I totally agree with you that in the sense that normies will like him and see Kamala's going to be good for business. This billionaire guy really likes her. You know, Mark Cuban's like a realistic billionaire. He's not cringe. You know, those kinds of things. I think it does help him a lot, or it'll help her a lot more than the Starbucks guy going out.
Yeah, I think that Mark Cuban kind of currently has that appeal that the 2014, 2015 Donald Trump had, where people actually believe that like this is a smart and successful businessman. This is someone that should be in charge because look at how well they've done
Donald
for
Trump
themselves.
For liberals, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And unlike Donald Trump, who now most people just think of as a scam artist, that's what he is, an obvious con man with Trump University and shit like that. Mark Cuban can actually point to like successes he's had in the business realm recently, not in like the 2000s or the 90s or something, but he's a very successful business person, and he is telegenic, like I said, in a way that most billionaires aren't. He seems to have the ability to connect with normal people in a way that, like I said, most people of his status simply are incapable of. So I do think it's interesting to talk about because of exactly what you said, Zach. He's a nefarious force for that reason. It sounds like I'm praising the guy, but no, I'm identifying what makes him so nefarious as a hyper-capitalist elite. He's going to be able to worm his way into this administration, and I imagine that he has a lot of ambitions for himself, guys. I imagine that he has a lot of ambitions for himself. He briefly flirted with running as like an independent candidate, or maybe
he will run for president
as a forward party candidate. I think it's pretty clear that now that he's sold the Mavericks and he's entering Democratic politics as a surrogate and auditioning for a job in the administration, I think it's pretty clear that he has presidential ambitions of his own. We're going to be talking about this guy for a long time to come, I fear.
Oh, 100%. You hit the nail on the head. He's definitely getting his feet wet. I think that for a lot of these billionaire guys, Donald Trump really tripped the reptile portion of their brain. You guys have to understand, you have to be a crazy person in order to become a billionaire. Most of us will stop by then. We don't want to cut down all of the people in front of us. We don't have a ridiculous need to generate capital. If you do become a billionaire and you're at all reasonable, you'll do exactly what the YouTube guys did. They built YouTube. They were like, holy shit, dude, we're 3 best friends. We're going to be richer than God. They sold it like 3 years later after it exploded to Google for $1.4 billion. And then everybody always asks them, they're like, aren't you sad that you missed out on the other $39 billion that it's worth now? And they're like, no, we're not sad that we missed out on all of that other money. We made plenty of money and we're never going to spend it all.
I mean, if you have that much money, you can just invest a bunch in the stock market and sit back on a beach.
That's exactly what they do. They're not in the public life. They don't run Google. Or they don't run YouTube or anything like that. That's how a normal, or as normal as you could possibly react to that insane amount of money. If you go and do what Mark Cuban did, which was you start your first company, you sell it, you get bored, then you revolutionize tech, which he did do through the help of, I'm sure, many unnamed participants, right? Where he made it so you could watch sports streaming on the internet. That was a huge thing. He sold that for $1 billion. Wasn't done. Bought the Dallas Mavericks, builds it up, sells it again. Anyway. We're rambling about Mark Cuban. Don't forget about this guy. He's going to run for president. Don't let him convince you he's a good guy. We cannot let this guy make it through the Democratic primary when he decides to run. He'll try and buy it for himself, and he's going to be more coy, and he's going to be a better salesman than Mike Bloomberg ever was and any other rich person that's gone. He is going to be the Donald Trump of the Democratic Party. They will fall for his shtick. The same people who were like, Oprah's our president now. Well, let's run Mark Zuckerberg, who is a full-on libertarian ghoul now.
He's going the other direction. Mark Zuckerberg is 100% going to be a Republican. I mean, he already is, but he's going to be a straight-up, out-and-out Republican as soon as the Trump era is over, in my opinion. But yeah, it's definitely interesting when it comes to the 2032 Democratic Party primary war between Mark Cuban and Tim Walz. You guys know where we're going to be. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to be with Mark Cuban.
We're going to be Walls Warriors, baby.